Have you ever had a moment where someone that you care about a lot looks at you and says, "You've changed. I like the old you better." And even though they don't mean it harshly, it lands really heavy because immediately your mind starts racing. You wonder if you disappointed them. You wonder if you made a mistake, or you wonder if you're becoming more yourself somehow cost you something more important. And that single sentence can stay with you for far longer than it should. Today, I want to talk about what that comment really means and how to hear it without shrinking, and how to stay true to yourself without burning bridges. We all change, change is constant. And when someone says something like, the old you was better, most of the time they're not saying that you became worse. What they're actually saying is that the old version of you felt familiar to them or maybe benefited them in some way. Maybe that's more subconscious. You fit into a role that they understood. They knew how to interact with you, they knew what to expect, and now something feels different. That difference doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means that you've grown, noticed new things, made some adjustments, or decided to live more honestly, more authentically, in alignment with who you truly are at this moment. Growth disrupts patterns, and not everyone is comfortable with that disruption. I've had this happen multiple times and continue to have this happen. And it's not always easy to let go of. I utilize that when comments come back to me that way of, oh, you've changed, you're not the same, and this and that. I look at it like, okay, well, I've grown, and what is it that may be making this person uncomfortable? Does this relationship still fit? And for a lot of people, the old you wasn't actually the real you. You probably were hiding who you truly were. It was the version that stayed quiet to keep the peace. It was a version that didn't speak up to avoid conflict. And maybe that version softened the edges so others wouldn't feel challenged. I know exactly what this is like. I've had this multiple times and continue to. I'm going through that right now with some very close relationships of mine. And it's not because you're fake. Because you were trying to be careful. You were trying to take everybody else's thoughts, feelings in account more than your own. And then something shifts for you. You get older, you go through something major that makes you transform. You realize that holding yourself back costs way too much energy. So you start saying what you mean. You stop explaining yourself so much. You let your personality come forward. And that's not a personality change. That is this freedom, the self-permission. And why does it make people uncomfortable is because we don't say enough usually. When you change, it forces other people to decide whether they're willing to relate to you in a new way. I've been in close relationships, intimate relationships before, where these changes that I have undergone has caused the other person to react in a very negative way, knowing that I have, at that point, really revealing that maybe I had outgrown the relationship at that time. Because when you change, it forces other people to decide whether they're going to relate to you in your new way or not. Some people are and some people are not. And that's not a moral failure on either side. It's just people get attached to who we were when they met you. And when that version evolves, they feel unsafe, unsure about where they stand. And sometimes that discomfort for them feels like it's criticism when it's not. You're different, you've changed, you're not the same anymore. And they are right, you are not the same. And that's the point. That's whenever you outgrow. It's interesting how you can have some relationships that will last you a lifetime, because in those relationships, most of the time, either you have grown in the same direction the entire time, or you have just respect for one another to accept the changes, and you get to learn the new version of that person. Some people will fall away as you grow. That doesn't mean that the connection wasn't real. It doesn't mean anyone was wrong. It just means that the season has ended. You can respect someone's choice to step back without hardening your heart. You can carry appreciation for what you've shared with them without forcing something that no longer fits you. And not every relationship is meant to come with you into every chapter of your life. And that is okay, although hard. I'm currently going through something very personal with that in relationship to family. Things have shifted within the family and the extended family so much in the last couple of years that there has been a lot of falling away, lots of, lack of communication, lack of reaching out, lack of a lot of things that used to be there on a regular basis. And it's a grieving process that you have to go through. But in a way, it sets you free in order to do what you need to do, and for them as well. There are people who will stay but struggle to understand the changes you're making but want to learn from you. And these are often the hardest situations sometimes because you don't want to hurt them. You don't want to create distance, but you also don't want to go back to being similar to what you were before. And this is where meeting people with patience matters. This is sometimes in family, especially family relationships, that you need to take into consideration. You don't have to convince anyone of your growth. You just have to live consistently. Let your example, let your actions speak for themselves. And people who learn, who you are by how you show up, not by how much you explain. It's in your actions and the way that you show up, and you're consistently showing up. And when someone tells you that they liked the older you better, it's easy to get defensive or to shut down. Instead, just pause and ask yourself what part of their words is about them and what part is worth reflecting on for you. You don't need to absorb every opinion. I have relationships right now, currently in my life, that when I'm having some sort of growth spurt, their response is to have an opinion about everything. And although sometimes it is very painful and it's very hurtful, I have learned to just walk away, step away, and say, okay, what part of that is true? Does that opinion really matter to me? Is it reflective upon myself, or is it maybe something that they're going through? And you don't always need to dismiss everything that feels uncomfortable, okay? Sometimes you have to look at it and go, okay, what part of this is true? And that space in between the reaction response is where you're really understanding your life and lives of others. So this is what I want you to take with you today. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to grow. You're allowed to grow in ways that surprise other people. You're allowed to let your true self take up space. Be gentle with people who are adjusting. Be respectful of those who step away. Most importantly, be honest with yourself above anything else. Speak from your heart with care and clarity and respect and compassion. The world doesn't need more people hiding who they are. It needs more people willing to live openly, thoughtfully, and with compassion and respect and joy. If this speaks to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. You're not alone in this. And if you're in the middle of becoming more yourself, keep going. You're doing it right. I mean, this is something that we are constantly changing. We're constantly evolving if we allow ourselves to be. So don't hesitate to grow beyond where you are right now. Thank you so much for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe, hit the follow button, share this with anybody that needs to hear this, and looking forward to connecting with you next time.